So my name is Crystal Kikol. Again, I'm the director of the Center for Academic Success at Pierce College, and I'm also coordinator for the California Community Colleges Success Network, or 3CSN. That's the organization that sponsors this event. So every Friday at 3 o'clock, we get to hold a workshop where peer educators from all over the West Coast join us and share some successful practices, discussions, strategies, so that we can all get better together. So we also have with us Cameron Brenner, Lindsay Ann, and Lindsay Lazo, who are current and former peer educators at Pierce College, many of whom have gone on and are earning their master's degrees now and are interning with 3CSN. So we got 3 graduate students and a graduate here today. We're really looking forward to hearing about you. So if you haven't already, do find the chat and tell us what college you're from, what your name is, and what role you play at that college. So what are we going to do today, you ask? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how we communicate with our students online and in person, so that we can set standards and expectations early in order to avoid awkward situations, redirect behaviors, and set boundaries once things start to get awkward or off topic or wayward or even disruptive. And we're also going to talk about how to navigate challenges, resolve conflict, and if we're unable to, we're ultimately going to talk about how to get yourself safe and out of the situation. If you have a question, comment, or epiphany, or a norm, or a strategy, or a horror story, or whatever it is, put it in the chat. We've got folks watching the chat for us. And if you have any questions, do raise your hands. We'll have some audience participation today, and we'll also have some breakout rooms. So please do raise your hand and ask those questions if you have any. In order for us to work really well today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today and get ourselves ready for that learning. So first of all, get yourself ready. We're going to do some reading. We're going to share our experiences. We're actually going to practice some really awkward phrases and set some boundaries for ourselves. We're going to practice. So get ready to say it out loud. We are going to work in small groups. So if you can't be in a small group, please message Lindsay Lazo. Oh, Lindsay Lazo tells me that my slides aren't showing. Is that true? My apologies. How about now? Can you see it? Okay, cool. All right. Oh my, you didn't see my awkward. Oh, look, you didn't see my Maleficent. What an awkward situation. Anybody seen Sleeping Beauty? Okay, well, if you didn't, okay. All right, sorry. All right, back to the community agreements, right? So get ready to read, work in small groups, and tell Lindsay L if you can't be in a breakout. Turn your camera on, please, if you can. I know that you might be tired, you might be eating some chocolate, whatever it is, we love you exactly how you are. It really does help us create community if those cameras are on. Please do interact. We love your confusion. Be nice to each other, especially today as we start talking about these horror stories. Sometimes this can get a little emotional. So let's just agree in advance to be kind to each other. And if we do hear something that maybe triggers us or we don't like, it's okay to speak up. We're going to use an oops, ouch, sorry method for conflict resolution. And basically what that means is if you hear something that doesn't feel good for you or hurts, you can just say, hey, ouch, that didn't feel great. And then there you go, right? And we can just put it out there and the person who said it can just say, oops, no harm intended, right? We'll talk a little bit more about what that norm looks like from 4 to 4:30 and how that plays out in real world scenarios. We just wanted to preview that a little bit now. Just a couple more thoughts. Here's what we can do today is we can provide some guidelines on how to set the tone for your sessions, how to redirect behavior when it starts to go sideways or get awkward. And we can talk about how to de-escalate those difficult situations and ultimately how to get yourself out of an unsafe situation. We can provide some spaces for you to share your stories and talk about how to respond to the hard situations that you've had or have imagined. And we can generate a strategy list for what to do the next time an awkward or difficult situation arises. But what we can't do is get to everyone's story today. And I can't tell you exactly what to do in every situation, especially since I'm not your boss. So you have to check with your supervisor, most of you. And we also, I'm afraid, cannot stop students from engaging in behaviors that disrupt your session. So we're just going to do our best to get through what we can and try to leave with some principles that maybe help us practice going forward in every situation. So that's it for intro slides. Let's start digging into the content. And for that, we're going to invite Lindsay Ann to come up and talk about how to start your session in a way that avoids this awkwardness or this conflict. So Lindsay Ann, take it away.
All right, so as Crystal said, setting good boundaries starts at the beginning of our sessions. So let's talk about how we can set those at the beginning so we can avoid awkward situations by setting norms and expectations. So there are two types. And then next slide, implicit and explicit. And first, we're going to focus on the implicit norms and expectations. So the word implicit means implied. It's something that we assume to be there. It's part of every interaction between all people. So for example, I'm Filipino. One of the implicit norms of a lot of Filipino families is to take off their shoes before coming to the house, that you don't bring dirt in. While that's normal for my family, that isn't always the norm for everyone else. Sometimes we assume that our norms and expectations are the same as everyone else's, like how some people may not know that they should take off their shoes before entering my household. Another example of this implicit norm and expectation would be what a peer educator can and cannot do. So when we don't talk about norms and expectations, we leave people to guess or assume what these norms are. Now, keeping that in mind, there could be a lot of miscommunications that arise from this type of norm. Alrighty, next slide. Now, with explicit norms and expectations, explicit norms are things that are stated clearly and in detail, which takes the guessing and assuming out of the interaction. With explicit norms and expectations, we can anticipate and avoid awkward situations. Here, we can tell students what the norms and expectations are, or you can ask them for their input and see what they'd like the norms and expectations to be. And then the next slide. So here we have an example of basic community agreements that you can implement when working with your tutees. Do note that while they are short and are always applicable, they do speak of some norms, but it leaves a lot unsaid. Now we will look at the next slide for other community agreements.
If it's all right, Lindsay, and if I could just go over these really quickly, just sort of like,
Sounds good.
so these are the basic community agreements that I take with me everywhere I go, right? So these go in my pocket, these are in my purse, whatever it is. Every presentation, I say these 4 things before I do any presentation. I remind people that it's okay to be confused. I remind people that they should participate, and I also show them how to participate, super important. I always remind people to, take turns and give people a chance. And I'll always say something about being kind and respectful. And if any of you have been to these sessions in the past, which is basically all of you, you know that every single one of these norms is at the beginning of every single one of these presentations, right? So you know that these are things that we take with us everywhere because they're basically applicable in every single situation. It may seem obvious that confusion is okay and that you should participate, but do remember that not everybody realizes that this is how you run your session. And also not everybody even knows what it means when you tell them to participate. So even though it seems obvious to you, you do want to make these explicit every single time in the beginning of your session. So those are some of our basics. And now Lindsay Ann's going to go over some more complex agreements.
Now, here with these community agreements, they set another set of norms, but with a lot of explicit details. So for example, with the first line, assume best intentions. They do keep that first line, that first sentence short and to the point, but then it adds on what to do and how to respond if someone doesn't like what they hear, which is stating what the norm is of what to expect or anticipate if someone says something that another person disagrees with. So they say, if you do not like something you hear, please speak up, do so respectfully and offer a solution. So with each of these community agreements, they're context-based. The second one is if you notice that some people are taking up more space than they are giving or sharing it, it's a great reminder for people to take space and give space. For the following one, we remain respectful we maintain respectful language. This one is very important, especially if you're talking about a heated or potentially sensitive topic. For the following line, we may not get to everyone's question. Um, this one might be for when there's multiple students present. It reminds them what they can do if in the case the tutor doesn't get to their question. And then for the we have 30 minutes together today, this one can be for when a tutor has a tutee who comes in multiple times for a long time. It sets a limit as to how long you as a tutor will be available to that tutee. And then lastly, as Crystal had mentioned earlier, let's use the oops, ouch, sorry method. This one we use when somebody said something that may have hurt somebody else. And if you stick around today for our disco hours, we will describe this method from 4 to 4:30. So here are things that people can add. It's a good idea to ask people what norms that they have. And so these are the questions that you can use to help them guide how to kind of ask that, have that conversation.
All right, so sometimes if I have a little bit of extra time, or if I think that the conversation might be a little heated, then I might end my norms by asking people what other norms they would like to see. I use these, by the way, in my work as a faculty coordinator as well. So when I'm working with other faculty members and I know we're going into a meeting that might be a little bit heated and a lot of people don't agree with each other, I might go through more norms. And then at the end, I might just say, hey, are there any other guidelines or tips that y'all think that we should put up here? You want to add anything? Are there any other ways that we could interact that would make sense? And I remind them, again, always tell people how to interact. I remind them that they can make suggestions by raising their hands or typing them in the chat. So before we go on to the next section, are there any questions or any other norms that people have used in their sessions that they'd like to add?
Right. Sorry. Now we're going to watch an ESL tutor work one-on-one with a student, and this tutor will demonstrate the norms and expectations to a tutee. As we see in this upper right corner, please use your reactions to share your thoughts in the video. Use a thumbs up if you've done this, a shocked face if you'd like to try this, and the clapping hands emoji if something was well done.
All right, so I'm going to show the first video and see if it works. And I would like a thumbs up just to tell me whether or not you can hear it. Okay. So here we go.
نباشروني شاني
والله باش مرحو زهقت من جنب إيرو لأنه مقالتك ما هي إنجليزي خاصة بسرعة تبشر.
Great. So you have an essay and you want us to work on it. So before we start, can we go over some rules together?
Sure.
Okay. So as you know, we will have 30 minutes to go over the essay. Probably we will not be able to go over all of it, but I will try to guide you find the main patterns of the problems, even though we both speak several languages, but let's try to have our session in English, and I love all those languages, by the way. Okay, so we first go over the structure of the essay, and if we had time at the end, we go over grammar as well. So for now, I think that is it. Do you agree with those rules?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, that's amazing. So can I see the essay prompt?
Yes, let me share my screen.
All right, so just a quick show of hands, raise your hand. What norms did you see that ESL tutor set? What do they do? And you can put it in the chat or raise your hand. What did he help him do? Okay, go ahead, Cameron. What did you see him do?
So he established that there was a time frame in which they're working on and that they're not going to be able to go over everything, which I think is a great thing to do in a session because often students will want to do everything, but you have to be realistic. Like, I would love to do everything with you, but that's not what we have in the timetable. So establishing that norm allows the student not to have bad or false expectations of what's going to be coming from the session.
Excellent. All right. And I see that Lindsay L says that they established that there was 30 minutes in the session. Mitra says that they spoke a common language, right? So showing respect, kindness, greeting in a common language other than English is fine, but because this was an ESL session, establishing that boundary, right? That even though we both love this language and we share it today because we're learning English, we're gonna stick to that one today. Great. Kayla tells us that it's really good to encourage breaks, right? To shorten the session to allow students to take a break and come back. Thank you, Kayla. So important. Love that. So cool. All right. So next up, go ahead, Lindsay Ann, you want to intro this one?
Yes. So now we're going to watch. You want to share your screen, Crystal, again? Slide.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to watch a video of philosophy tutor Lindsay introducing norms and expectations to two or more students and invite them to add their own.
All right. So here we go. And again, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
All right, well, I'm so glad, Cameron and Katie, that you're here today and that you're here a week ahead of your exam. So I know that there are two of you here today, so I just want to share a little bit about how this session is going to go. Is that all right?
Sure, yeah, I've never been to tutoring before.
Me neither. So it'd be helpful to know what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to just share our community agreements right now. We're just going to read them over and think about if there's anything we would like to add to these community agreements. So let's just take a couple minutes and do that. All right. Is there anything we would like to add to our community agreements to make the session run more smoothly?
Yeah, can we raise your hand if you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and can we add take breaks whenever we need to?
Yeah, absolutely. Good idea. All right. Now that we've set our community agreements and kind of know what's going on, let's dive right in. So what have you come to tutoring today for?
All right. So once again, raise your hand or tell me in the chat, what did you see Lindsay do? What kind of norms did Lindsay set? Pull up my participants screen here. All right. So Lindsay reminded them to raise their hand to ask a question. So super good to remind people how to participate. Right. Mitra says that that they set a norm about kindness and asking their opinions about the agreements. That really does help solidify ownership. People are a lot better about following the agreements if they had an opportunity to participate in them. Kayla, I got you. Did you notice that take breaks was part of the norm there? Right. So that came up. Great. Right. So Miriam says that they respected what they had to say. So it's not just, this is what we're doing, right? That they asked for other norms and really respected it and showed them that they were listening. Right. Cool. So let's start thinking about how to apply this stuff. Go ahead, take it away.
All right. Now, if you're here today's session, it's probably because you've had a challenging situation or you're anticipating one. So for a few minutes, think, write, or type about a situation that was challenging for you or one that you're anticipating. How did/would you respond? And if this actually happened, was your response effective? Why or why not? And lastly, what are you hoping to learn today?
Okay, great. Okay, keep them coming. So all right, so now we're going to do a little reading and add a little literature to this conversation. So Cameron, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and I'd like to thank my fellow co-hosts for being quite amazing, as usual. All right, so I'm going to be putting in the chat a link to, and I'm also going to upload the actual file as well in case you can't seem to download it. All right, go to the link. All right, so we're going to be reading this article. Think about your session. Read the article. Think about how you would use the steps to address the situation. Now, important thing to note is if you can't go into the breakout room, please let Lindsay Laszlo know now. This would be a really great time to do that.
All right, so please let us know if you were unable to download the article either from the link or directly from the chat. So go ahead and come to a natural stopping place wherever you're reading now. It's totally fine if you didn't finish, but come to a nice place where you can stop.
I have to say, it was a nice, refreshing article. Okay, everybody. Now we're going to go into breakout rooms and share it. We're going to, as I said, let us go into some breakout rooms in your groups. Now, first thing we'd like you to do is to take turns introducing yourself, your names, your pronouns, the college you work at, and your role at said college. Your second thing we'd like you to do is take turns. What was the situation that you wrote about? How did the article fit within your situation? Give each other about 2 minutes for each of this. Lastly, engage in crosstalk. What ideas and thoughts do you have on each other's situation? Think about setting norms, the article, and any ideas that came up in your collective wisdom. So this is now where we're going to go on breakout rooms. And as I said before, this is your last chance before we go in. So if you cannot do that now, yeah.
Too late, you're already in.
Too late. Hey, okay, Google, stop.
All
Mike.
right, so Lindsay's going to put you in breakout rooms. We'll give you about 10 minutes to be in those breakout rooms. Lindsay, do you need to tell us anything before you put us in those breakout rooms? All right, does anybody have any questions on the task? All right, we'll come back. We'll see you in about 10 minutes and we'll practice some awkward situations and scripts. See y'all soon. All right, and I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, thank you.
And I see new cameras on now. Yay. Okay. All right. So let's get awkward. So this is the audience participation part. So people get ready to say awkward things. Take it away, Lindsay.
So as is previewed in the article, there's kind of a script that we can follow to help us get through these awkward situations. So we're going to go through the script, and as Crystal mentioned, we're going to be practicing. So next slide. The very first part of this whole ordeal, when that conflict or the awkward situation arises, is to take care of yourself. So staying present, letting go of whatever story you've created about what the student's doing and why they're doing it. Just focus on your body, take a nice deep breath, and like center yourself. And in the chat, Cameron's going to share a link to an article called Calming Your Brain During Conflict. We're not going to read it right now, but it is a resource to kind of help you with that kind of taking care of yourself aspect of conflict resolution. Next slide. So the next three things happen in succession. The very first thing that you're going to say is something empathetic, but not apologetic. So I know that it's frustrating that you've waited so long to see a peer educator. And so, you know, I know that oftentimes, and we were having this conversation in my breakout room, the first thing that comes out is, I'm sorry, right? We want to apologize, but oftentimes there's nothing for us to apologize about. So expressing that empathy is the best way to go, just saying, I can hear that you're really frustrated about what's going on. So who would like to practice saying an empathetic statement to that scenario student that you wrote about?
So go ahead and raise your hand if you want to practice, and you don't have to go crazy or creative. Just read it right off the screen. I know that it's frustrating, that whatever. All right.
All right. Go ahead, Cameron.
I know that it's frustrating that you don't have more time for individual assistance.
Yes. Sometimes students want more of our time, and we cannot give that to them. That is not something to apologize, but empathize with. Thank you. Next, we want to set our intention, because we do want to help them, right? The important part is we want to share with them, I really want to help you with whatever it is. Find a peer educator, find that answer, whatever our intention is in that situation, we do want to help them. So letting them know that's what we're doing, we're trying to help them, is important. So who would like to practice saying their intention? Go ahead and raise your hand. And again, feel free to read right off the script, or you can use your own phrasing. Awesome. Go ahead, Joshua.
Oh, hello. seems to work best in this case is, I really want to help you complete your homework questions.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that intention. All right. After you've said what your intention is, then you have to set that condition. So in order for me to help you, I need you to put on a shirt. That is a real case scenario from my own experience. I had a student come in, no shirt on. It's real. So for me to help you, I need you to put on a shirt. So you'll see that it was a very concrete thing that I needed them to do. This one's a little bit tougher, but what brave soul would like to practice that condition? All right, I saw Lindsay's hand first. Go for it.
For me to help you, I need you to wait for these two people to ask your question before you ask your question.
Amazing.
I'd love
Thank
to
you.
hear Miriam do it too, actually. Is that okay? Can we hear too?
Yeah, sure. Miriam, you want to give it a go?
Sure, I guess to make it relevant, I would say, for me to help you, I need you to understand that I can help you find the answers, but I'm not allowed to give you the answers.
Memorize that one, folks, right? That one comes up a lot.
Yes, definitely. I can help you find those answers. I cannot give them to you. Amazing. So the succession is express your empathy, tell them what you are wanting to help them, how you want to help them, and then setting that condition. Next slide. And you'll notice that again, the conditions are very specific. It needs to be concrete and measurable, something that you know that they can do, and providing that alternative behavior. So instead of saying, stop being shirtless, like tell them, I need you to put on a shirt. Something for them to do, not something for them not to do. So make it very concrete and specific. Next slide.
I just want to emphasize that this is really important because our intention, our first sort of like response is going to tell them to stop doing something. Stop asking me for answers, right? Stop interrupting people. Stop. And that's a fine place to start, but just keep in mind that telling somebody to stop doing something doesn't give them the alternative, right? So it doesn't tell them what they're supposed to be doing. It just tells them that they're bad, right? So instead of saying you have to stop asking me questions or stop asking me for the answers, you might say, I need you to start by telling me what you think, and then we'll take it from there. I need you to raise your hand when you participate instead of saying, I need you to stop interrupting people, right? I need you to speak at a lower tone of voice, right? Instead of I need you to stop raising your voice, right? So that's going to be really key in helping people build up skills for what to do, as opposed to just leaving them a little lost and hopeless about telling them that whatever it is that they're doing is wrong. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. Yes. And if all else fails, then sometimes you need to give them an ultimatum. There are some students who will continue to do whatever their behavior is. And so you may need to provide an ultimatum where you say, you know, if you continue to be shirtless, I won't be able to help you. And so in that way, you're kind of saying like, this is where we're stopping. If you're not able to meet the condition I'm asking you to meet, then I'm not going to be able to provide the services you're expecting. So this one's really tough. And I'm wondering if someone would like to practice saying that ultimatum. Go for it, Jackie.
If you continue to tell me that I have to give you the answer, I won't be able to help you.
Beautiful.
That you won't. Thank you. All right. And sometimes in the very worst of scenarios, not very frequent, but in the very worst scenarios, you may need to actually just tap out and end the session. So this is what we suggest, but we want you to be asking your supervisor, if I get into this awkward situation or have this conflict with a student, what am I supposed to do when it gets out of hand? Typically, you can just say, you know, we're going to end the session now. and you can walk away if you feel unsafe. Don't give them a whole exit speech and say, you're being so terrible and I can't believe it. And now I'm going to walk away and leave. Like, just tell them session's over and then go ahead and walk away, and or tell your supervisor immediately. And obviously, again, in that exit, you're not going to say, I'm going to go tell my supervisor. Just tell them whatever. I'm going to go take a sip of water and I'll be back. And then go walk and talk to your supervisor. But in either case, we don't want anyone to be in that unsafe environment, not the other students who are probably there or you. And so make sure you really understand and know the protocol for stepping out of those situations. Next slide. So there are typically 4 general outcomes. I'm sure there's a plethora of other additional wild outcomes, but these are the typical 4. When your supervisor talks to that student, they may allow them to return and talk with you, and you'll resume your session. Sometimes they'll allow the student to return but go to a different peer educator. They may return the next day, or they may return when a requirement is met at a much later time. So typically, it's the case that the student can return, just in a variety of different ways, depending on the severity of the issue. And again, yeah, go ahead.
Finish. No, please. I just want to add something when you're done.
Okay. Yeah. And again, like, your supervisor will be the one to let you know what the outcome is and how you can maintain a safe environment.
Thank you. And so as a supervisor who has been doing this a lot since it's about to be finals, and people are very cranky right now, and I have a lot of people who are upset on both sides, right? Tutors who are, feeling like students are getting cranky, and also students who are feeling like their tutors aren't doing enough for them because they're not giving them those answers. I just want you to know that from the supervisor's perspective, we want to know when these things happen. Sometimes we have students or tutors tell us, like, 6 months later, like, oh yeah, that person hit on me, or oh yeah, that one screams at me all the time, right? Like, that doesn't feel good from a supervisor's perspective, to know that you've been yelled at for 3 months and you didn't say anything, right? So if something like this does arise, I really do encourage you to let your supervisor know. And there actually is a 5th alternative here, and that is sometimes the supervisor will talk to you about how you can handle that situation, right? So sometimes it's both or and. So occasionally I'll just talk to the tutor, we'll talk it through, we'll do some role play, and at the end, the tutor will be like, you know what, I think I got this, right? I wanted to say one other thing, and that is, in this stage, the ultimatum, if you give the student the ultimatum, if you have to get this far, right? And if you have to say to them, listen, if you continue to speak to me at that volume, I won't be able to help you. If you get this far, don't expect the student to like you afterwards. The student's not going to suddenly be like, oh, that's a good point. I have been raising my voice. Let's be friends, right? They're not going to be in a great place usually, especially if you have to get this far, right? So it's okay if the student feels a little bit mad at you, or they don't want to talk to you, right? And this actually just happened the other day when we had a student who was raising their voice at one of the tutors, and the tutor came into me, right, and said, this is happening. We went through the whole script, right? And then she's like, okay, I got this. I'm going to go do it. She's back in my session. I'm going to go see her, right? So the tutor goes back into the session, and she did the whole script, right? She's like, listen, I know that it's frustrating that you can't get this question answered, and I really want to help you find the answer to this question. But in order for me to help you, I need you to lower your voice. But of course, by then the student was upset, kept raising their voice. And so the tutor said, listen, if you continue to speak to me at that volume, I won't be able to help you, right? And what the student did was they muted themselves and they turned off their camera, right? And then they were silent for like 2 minutes. And then the student came back on and said, I want to take a picture for my extra credit. And then the tutor said, okay. And then she took the picture and left. Right? The tutor came back to me and I said, hey, what happened? And the tutor said, oh, it didn't go so well. And she told me that story. And I have to tell you, like, in my mind, that was great. Like, that was awesome, right? She stuck to her guns. She set her boundaries. She said, listen, you can't raise your voice at me, right? The student didn't like it. The student didn't magically calm down, but the student stopped raising her voice and the student ended the session, right? Yes, Kayla, best case scenario for a sticky situation. So this isn't going to turn your session into magic happy feelings, but it will hold your boundaries. And now next time when that student comes back into the next tutoring session, they'll know what happens if they raise their voice, right? So really important. So any questions before we move on? All right, Lindsay, last slide, take it away.
Oh, nice. Oh, can you go to the slide right before?
I actually took that one out because we're short on time.
Okay, cool. So as we mentioned, of course, like when you're in this mode, your brain's going to be moving at a fast pace. And so you need to practice saying the script again and again in order for it to be more automatic. So in that moment, you're not going to remember this training at all. You're just not. And so if you practice saying this, it'll be much easier coming out and being able to say that to a student. And are there any questions?
All right, so we're going to stay here and take more questions on your awkward situations. If you would like this script, I will put the actual PowerPoint in the chat as well. I don't know if I can while it's, no, it's still currently in use. So maybe Cameron can put the link to that or download it and put it in the chat.
Will do.
Thank you. So if you have to go, come on back next Friday. We're going to do a workshop for workshops. So how to put a workshop together. If you want to do one of these, we're going to put a link in the chat in a second for call for proposals for fall 2022. We would love to see you there. Let me go ahead and put those in there. Oops. No, all right, I won't. I'll do it in a second. We'll put that in the chat in a moment. Also in the chat will go up a link for some feedback because we do need to know your feedback. Super important for us. If you need to go, we understand, that's totally fine. But if you can stay, we are going to talk a little bit more about how to manage those difficult conversations. And specifically, we're going to talk a little bit more about that oops, ouch, sorry method and what to do when you know you're facilitating a conversation that is very likely to go sideways. So there's a link in the chat. So if you need to go, you're very welcome to. If you're going to stay, we'd love to have you. So thank you, everybody who's going. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.